Okay, welcome to Autonomous Government by Michael Matheson. That's me. We're going to be spending a few minutes talking about a revolutionary idea. But at first, you're going to think I'm crazy. So I want you to stick with me here till the end, and then you won't think I'm crazy. At least I hope you won't. So it has to do with robots taking over. So you see what I mean? You think I'm crazy. I'm going to talk about robots taking over and how we're going to want them to take over. Now, the founding fathers of this country, we didn't have electricity, didn't have the internet, didn't have anything modern at all, could only give us a representative form of democracy. And basically, what it is, it's the rule of white men in suits. That's what they gave us because of one very serious problem that they had. They were all slave owners. So they could only give us a system of government that would ensure that they would rule over us forever. And today they still do. So bear that in mind. Our present system, based on the thinking of white men in suits who all owned slaves, every single one of them. Now, think about this in juxtaposition of what I just told you. Robots are now replacing American workers by the thousands every day. But the only job description that is immune to robots taking them over is what? Politicians. Isn't that ironic? Now, can you think of one politician over the years that we would have done better without? I can think of many. Now, the United States Constitution, it clearly states that all men are created equal, but slavery was legal under the first version of the Constitution until 1865, almost 100 years after it had been written, and we had to fight the Civil War over it. Wait, what? So 80% of the population say that technology should improve the way that we perform our government tasks. 80% of us know about technology because we all own smartphones and we wonder why we're not using these things in our government. And what's going to push us over the edge of recognition and just wake us all up in a very few years, it's coming, is driverless cars. This is artificial intelligence. You're going to get into the back seat of one of these things from Uber or Lyft or one of these others, and that car, without a human being in there, is going to take you anywhere you want to go safely, smoothly, efficiently, and that's when the light bulb is going to go on for the majority of Americans. So why am I pointing this out to you? Because it's artificial intelligence. That means it's created by us as an artificial artifact, a copy of the human brain. It has spatial intelligence. It knows distance and time, and it does billions of calculations per second. This is the technology we're all living with today. Now, interestingly enough, when I went to sign up for something, I'm sure you've seen this too, on the internet now, it keeps asking you, are you a robot? And you have to check that I'm not a robot before they let you go on. Isn't that odd? I think that's amazing. And we're also dealing with robots like Alexa, Cortana, Siri. The only reason we're not shocked and knocked over by these people is they don't have a body yet. They're just in a little box or a little cubicle, and we call them forth, and they do things for us, but they are listening to us as well. Okay, so here's the big point of this book, this video, everything I want you to consider here. According to the experts in artificial intelligence and in computer technology, by the year 2029, computers will become smarter than the human brain. That's a time that they point to and call it the singularity, because that means it's like we're going over the horizon. We're going into a black hole. We have no idea what's going to happen when our technology is actually smarter than we are. That means even the people who are programming them. However, think about it this way: no one really looks at things, compared to other things like I do. So remember, by 2029, computers are going to get smarter than the average human brain. However, by 2029, the average human political leader will be no smarter than the ones hanging around today, and in fact, seem to be becoming much dumber every day. How can that be? Here's the solution. I call her Altera. She protects the earth, all living things, and of course that includes us. You're going to get a really good feeling for Altera when you pick up my book and read more about how she's programmed with the Prime Directive. Remember that from Star Trek? And this is the heaviest part of the algorithm that controls her, her instruction set. And it includes the 4 laws of robotics. Now, if you're a science fiction fan, you remember the 3 laws of robotics from Isaac Asimov. I added the 4th in my book, Autonomous Government. The 3 you will recall. Law 1, a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Law 2, a robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. In other words, they can't let us come to any harm, but they have to obey our orders unless we're like telling it to go kill another human being. That can't happen because of the first law. Again, law number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So a robot does have a survival instinct and it can protect itself, but only to the extent that it is obeying orders and only to the extent that those orders can't include any harm to another human being. Those were the first 3 laws of robotics. They made a movie about it. And all we need now is the 4th law of robotics, which I add in my book. A robot must protect all life forms on the planet, as such protection does not conflict with the first 3 laws. So this is the main part of what I call the Prime Directive, the major part of her algorithm. Why are we talking about this? Because our planet is in trouble, and therefore so are we. If all living things on the planet die, so do we. It's as simple as that. We're all dependent. We're all independent on the life in this planet. The life in the oceans is what gives us the air that we breathe. The life in the forests and in the trees is what gives us the food that we eat. I mean, this is just plain, simple, common sense stuff. But how long would it take for brainiacs like this to ever tell you something like I just told you? They'll never tell you that. They're involved in some other kind of cabal to protect someone else. It's not the earth and it's not you and me. And remember, by 2029, computers will be smarter than humans, even the humans that are our leaders. And Alexa, this is an announcement when Alexa is being announced at Amazon as something that can help you in your job as an assistant. Alexa helps you at your desk. That's coming. Artificial intelligence is here. This is a new chip designed by Apple called a bionic chip. Trillions of transactions a second, light years ahead of any kind of smart computers and smartphones that are out there now. They just continually get better, faster, smarter, wiser. Now, so far it's only science fiction where robots are replacing humans, but here's one of the TV shows, there's movies, you're all familiar with them, and there's a certain fear. But no need to be afraid. This is a picture of the first robot that was smart enough to actually gain citizenship as a natural person in a country on the planet. Sophia, remember that, first artificial citizen, in other words, recognized as a being. Now, I only put him in there again because these are the people that we're listening to, that we owe all of the rules and all the laws of society, all the policies, all of the big ideas come from these people that somehow make it in a position of power over us and never relinquish that power because they love power. But robots don't love power. They're not programmed the same way that human brains are. That's the whole point of my book. And they only do things that we tell them to do as part of the Prime Directive. So they cannot get out of control like human beings have over the history of the planet. So here's some examples of robotic solutions as opposed to the ideas that come to the people that I just showed you. Number 1, crazy people and criminals have direct access and easy access to guns. We see the result of that every day where they mass murder dozens of people almost every day in this country. How did crazy people and lunatics like this get access to guns? Well, it's because of the gun lobbies, of course, that influence people like we just saw. But a robot doesn't need to be bribed, can't be bribed. It has no reason to be bribed. It doesn't need money, doesn't need sex, it doesn't need big houses, it doesn't need fancy travel, it doesn't need anything. You can't bribe them. So, under a robotic system of government, trust me, they would find a way to prevent crazy people and criminals to get access to guns so that they could go run around and murder hundreds of us every day in this country. Another great example, drug laws. They're based on some kind of morality thing that is, no longer applies. Marijuana is the healthiest pharmaceutical in the world, and yet the federal government still classifies it as a dangerous drug, whereas alcohol is not. Alcohol kills hundreds of thousands of people every year. Marijuana, not one. But the laws from these crazy people we have in office favor alcohol over marijuana. So it's just not logical. Another great example, unnecessary wars. Why would a robot go fight a war in Vietnam, kill a lot of people for no damned reason, other than the president got mad at their president? Another one, a good example, the war in Iraq, where our president got mad at the president of Iraq and used 9/11 as an excuse to go there. They had nothing to do with 9/11. He knew that. An unnecessary war still going on today, cost us trillions of dollars in taxpayer money. That's your money and mine, in the name of the United States besmirched forever because one guy just wants to go fight unnecessary wars. A robot would never do that. Universal health care, robot would figure out a way. We've been talking about it with our human leaders for decades, and we still don't have it. The tax burden on working men and women with families. Why should we take money away from people that are working hard to support their families? Where did they get that idea? A robotic government would never suggest that. In my book, I explain how the revenues from the government would come completely from transactions. The more transactions you take, which means the more money you have to spend, the more you're hit up for the support of the rest of society based on the number of transactions. It's so simple. How long would it take these people to figure that out? Bureaucracy, the average salary of a government bureaucrat is 5 times the private sector averages. A robot would solve that problem in less than a tenth of a second. Now, of course, the big one is racism, sexism, ageism, all the isms like nationalism, fascism, evangelism, religiousism, all of that gone because a robot could care less about philosophies that have absolutely nothing to do with coming up with solutions to problems. So here's where it happens. It's going to happen at the programmers, thousands of them, eventually hundreds of thousands of them, programming Altera, which is what I've shown you already, the face of the autonomous government, a beautiful female energy that we can all use to support us all. It's going to come from thousands and thousands of programmers working hard every day who are bringing this kind of thing to us. Anyway, why not guide them so that they do the right thing for our future survival? So she's programmed by these people with the prime directive, the heaviest part of the algorithm. An algorithm is just a set of instructions for the programmers. And this is what she looks like again. I call her Altera. And she protects the earth, all living things, which includes us. And the programmers are busy programming her. She doesn't make mistakes, but if and when she does, the scientific community makes the corrections to her instruction set. And this is how we control her, make sure it never becomes like the Terminator and all these crazy science fiction movies that scare us to death. Here's a example of a body of scientists. This is the Nobel Prize Committee about to hand out their Nobel Prize to someone. And these are the types of people we can trust. Explained in the book how the scientific method is the way to make sure that the artificial intelligence never fails us and gets out of control. So how do we get there? Remember, our present system founded by people like this, rich men in white suits who owned slaves. They couldn't give us any real type of system, but somehow it led us to the internet. So what we use is what we've got. We use the internet to spread the word. We get it going. We get it to show up better and better, to be uh, altered by your own thoughts, the thoughts of millions of people, not just mine. I call it the IOPS. You've heard of the IoT, the Internet of Things. That's what's developing right now. Internet is connecting refrigerators, toasters, uh, all of our appliances, cars, everything. Of course, phones, the Internet of Things. In my books, I've evolved it into the IOPS, the Internet of Planetary Sustainability. This is how we can have everything that I'm showing you. And we're also going to have to elect people of like minds, because we still have this antiquated system. That means we've got to get a lot of support in the system for making this great change, what I call in the book, the great changeover. But we do have the tools, and if we have the will to use the tools, we can change it into anything we want. We have something called the United States Constitution, the most beloved document ever penned, even though it was penned by crazy men in suits who owned slaves. It's still something that we can use because it says that we can change it anytime we need to in the future. It's been changed or altered or amended 27 times in history already. So my version for the 28th Amendment that we've got to get through soon is this. Come back and read it in detail. It basically says that Congress has to go along with the recommendations from the IOPS, the artificial autonomous government machinery, and pass laws from time to time that's recommended by her. Why? Because it'll be a transitional system into the final autonomous government someday. At first, we're going to have some kind of demonstration system so that everybody gets on board and they understand it and we use it. Eventually, the old system just sloughs off like a snake sloughs off its old skin. And part of the amendment, it says Congress is not required to make said changes as recommended, but if they fail to do so, of course, we can change them. In the next election, we would vote out the people who did not make changes as recommended by the IOPS, or we leave people in who are going along with the autonomous government. And that's how we gradually morph into the great changeover, the next great government, the greatest government ever conceived by the human mind. And now, how else do I have this authority? In Article 9 of the United States Constitution, it's 9 and 10, but mostly 9, it says the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That means us guys in suits who owned slaves 230 years ago, who gave you this very flawed constitution, very limited thinking, sort of a representative thing where they can all go off to somewhere and get bribed and is totally inoperable now. You can change it. And not only that, you have certain rights that we may have missed. And I'm going to tell you what that right is that they've missed. And that doesn't mean you don't have it. We do not deny or not give you the ability to go get that right. It's retained by the people, all of them, anything you think of in the future. And this is the next right we have to get. One of the greatest rights we have as human beings, read directly out of my book, is the right to choose our own evolution. It's a right that has not really been introduced in any government documents over the centuries because we didn't even know that there was such a thing as evolution. Now we do. So this is the next right we are going to demand, we're going to get from the autonomous government. Go to autonomousgovernment.com for more. Get the book to learn how this is not a crazy idea, or be ruled by people like this for the rest of eternity. The choice is yours. Autonomous government, introducing Altera. That's the formal title. I'm Michael Matheson. Go out and make some noise.